No personnel department, no nothing. I learned a lot. I mean, cash. And all the stuffs, all the layers of bureaucracy that happen in corporations and in businesses, little businesses, not big businesses. It taught me something. It gave me a value, a mindset that I didn't have to go through, make the same mistakes. Now, I made plenty of other mistakes, but I didn't make those. And I even still made the diversification mistake. As I think I said yesterday, I used to have a refinery that produced 50,000 barrels a day. They made $14 a barrel margin. 50,000 times 14 every single day. Instead of going out and building another refinery, I went in the movie business. Lost $27 million. I did a movie with Richard Harris, Martin Black, and Karen Landau. Martin Landau, Karen Black, and Richard Harris, excuse me. Got the names wrong. I did they said, you can't lose money. You can't do anything but make money with Hoyt Axton and Dolly Parton, country western. $7 million down the drain. I mean, so finally I got my head screwed on straight and forgot that, and I went back, By the time I went around to build another refinery, the margins weren't there. Lake Charles Refining Company, Lake Charles, Louisiana. So I've made all these mistakes. So when I'm telling you, look at all the companies that diversified. This is something I learned from Gratsos. Sears and Roebuck into financial services and all this crap they're getting out of now. All these companies that made billions and billions and billions of dollars diversified in all this junk, and now they're getting out of it because they didn't stick to their knitting. And it's happened historically, decade after decade after decade. But everybody does it. You know why? Because you have a new generation of young MBA doofuses that come up. They think they figured out a better way. And by the time they're really seasoned, experienced managers, they've gone on promoted, and they got another batch of young doofuses that came up, making the same mistakes over and over again. And that's what's happening to corporate America, and has for, the last, 50 years. A long, long time. But that's why when you get advice, you go to somebody that you respect. Mr. Gratsos gave me these 3 little quips. A friend is a friendship in trouble, courage in battle, wisdom and rage. I needed more of the wisdom and rage advice than I needed the 2 former ones. But how do you find such a person? Now, I'm not going to talk about mastermind groups because I don't believe in them. I don't think they work. They haven't been effective. I've never really seen one effectively work in my whole business career. But I have seen dozens and hundreds of mentor relationships work. And now, some people say, and arguably correct, the reason why mastermind groups never work for you, Dan, is because they just suck my brains. I never sucked anybody's brains, basically. And so I'm not going to talk about that, but I am going to talk about the mentor relationship. Number one, you have to find somebody who was significantly more successful than yourself. For this group, that ain't too difficult. This group, it ain't too difficult. We could probably find somebody in the bar right now, slumped over his seat.
Are you ever going to ease up on us?
Huh? No, sir. Did Vince Lombardi ever ease up on the Packers? No, sir. Okay. You want it to be a senior person you really like and respect. And the reason why I put like is because you want to... I need to like to be around the person. I don't like too many people anyway, but I got to like the person. I like those Constantine Gratsos. He was a good man. I still, I looked at Jerry Orman like a second father, and Jim Newman is, like my older brother. I really like these guys. They have to have vastly more experience, and they have to be accessible to you. A mentor relationship across country, although I don't believe I'm the mentor of the Mosbys, but they probably hear from me more than they wish. But they're running my money, so they're going to hear from me. So they kind of got a locked-in mentor relationship with me. But you want somebody that's local. He doesn't have to be a lot older than you, but he's got to be a lot more experienced than you. Same field of endeavor, most desirable but not mandatory. Now, I've had 3 mentors in my life. I've had Jerry Orman, who was my mentor in the energy business. I've had Costa Gratsos, who was my mentor in general business. and I had Jim Newman, which was get your head screwed on straight mentor. Now, in all cases, I vastly exceeded their net worths, including Grazzo's. But Jerry's still my mentor. You can't help but live 75 years and run around with Baron Hilton, and, you know, up there where he lived, I mean, he still knows a lot of stuff. And I go, you know, and like he told me, he says, you know, you talk about those Fortune 500 CEOs, when are we going to play Bel Air again? I mean, when are you going to come down there? And it's a lot of fun for me. Plus, these old CEOs, guys retired, they love hearing me. I mean, because I whip them and say, why don't you get off your dead ass? What do you be retired for? And, you know, these guys who run these big companies. God, we love Dan to whip us. You know, make us feel young again. And I said, well, why don't we just get them all in the big room, have a big dinner, I'll just come by and whip them all at once instead of 2 a month like I do now. Because, you see, nobody talks to these guys. Any of the Fortune 500 CEOs that I've played golf with out there could be mentors to people in this room. But nobody talks to them. I'm the only guy that talks to them, and I'm whipping them. They ought to get off their dead ass and go out and start another business. So the same field of endeavor as most are, but it's not mandatory. And you have to have something else in common outside the business. Because if you're going to spend a lot of time with this person, like Jerry and I have golf in common. He also, you know, they love my wife like their daughter, who would have been about the same age, who died of cancer. You know, I'm the son, Jerry's got sons, but I'm this other son that he never had. And so we've got something in common. And it's really important, because you can't have a mentor relationship just based on you asking the guy questions all the time. I mean, you have to have something else. And one of the things, and when you take when you see the mentor, you take him to lunch, you take him to dinner. I had the Mexican morons. I had to teach them this. You know, every time we went out to dinner, I went up buying for all 7 of them in there. You know, you take them, because they're guys that always get the checks, and they like when somebody else picks up the check, and it's not the matter of the money, because these guys have gotten the checks all their careers. And they like that. I still pick up the check for Ormond. I would for Costa if he was still alive. And picking up dinner at Le Coq Basque in New York in those early years was expensive for me. But I did it anyway. And he knew it was expensive for me. And he knew I did it anyway. Yes, Jim.
But I think one thing that is very true that you mentioned, and I mean, if everyone hasn't gotten it, it's very important that you understand you can't lose by asking these people. All they're going to do is tell you no. And I mean, I was terrified the first time I called Dan. I was waiting for the get the hell out of here, hang up, but I thought that's the worst that can happen.
Oh, where's the mic? Wait a minute.
So.
Huh? Where's the mic? Say that again.
What I was saying is that you really have nothing to lose by calling some of these people. And, I mean, the worst thing that can happen is they'll say no. And you have to get past that first, you know, you're shaking, you call them and say, this guy is just humongously important. And, you know, you've got to pick up the phone and make that call. And the very first time I called Dan, I was scared to death. I thought, this guy, you know, I've talked to him a couple times, he's going to hang up on me and tell me to piss off. I thought, you know, I talked to my wife, what's that to me? What's the big, you know, that's a big deal. And so, you know, I looked around, and Dan's right. I looked around. I didn't find anyone in St. Louis that I could see myself modeling my business thinking afterwards. And if I had to go to California to do it, I had to go to California. If I had to go to, you know, Haiti, the hell with it, I'm going to find the guy that's going to lead me the way I want to go. But you really have to get past that first step of saying, God, I can't call him. If he says no, you go to the next one. You got to get past that first step.
And so few people call me. So few people call the other high-performance people. I mean, I don't think Jerry Buss has been called in 25 years. I mean, he was all excited. Now, admittedly, the first 2 or 3 phone calls today, Fidel, the young man that was here yesterday, dealt with the 4th assistant, the 3rd assistant. But I mean, ultimately, well, how many of them are you? 4, okay, well, Mr. Buss can only, Dr. Buss, I forgot he was a doctor, Dr. Buss could only meet with 1 for dinner, and, I mean, the guy went, I mean, he's doing a lot more than I thought he would. I knew he'd see somebody. for nothing, no other reason than a cup of coffee. But now he's going to be up there in the box, and he's going to show off to all his doofus friends. Hey, look at these, the Mexican morons here, the Harvard Mexican morons come up to see me. Why are they coming up to see me? Because I'm rich as shit. That's why. I mean, he's going to love it. And they all love it. All these guys love it. I mean, I love it. You know?
Yeah, who does that sound like? I'm thinking a Harvard thing. You love it when you did that to us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when they called me, you know, I loved it. I had all 7 of them over in my house, you know, and I bought them dinner. I bought them dinner. I loved it. You know, I said, okay, one more time, every 5 or 6, 7 years, I get this guilt feeling that I should do something for my Hispanic heritage. I've been disappointed more times by my Latino brothers and sisters. I could give a 5-day seminar on it. But I mean, I get this thing, I don't know why, and so I decided it's about time. 5 or 6 years have passed, so I did it again. And I told these doofuses, you're probably going to disappoint me, and blah, 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 blah. And when they signed that letter of intent without showing it to me, they disappointed me. But we got them out of that deal. But I like it. I enjoy it. That's one of the reasons I do this. I enjoy it. And because people that have had tremendous success want to pass it on. They just do. They want to pass it on. And I'm not here trying to make a living at it. I like these, you know. I won't say this in Orlando, but I'm not like these other doofuses that got to make a nickel off these poor bastards that buy a seat, you know. You're welcome. I won't say it. But I mean, I don't need to be doing this. You know, Linda and I are too old for me to chase her around the house anymore, you know, like I used to when I was young. But I mean, I can do other things. I play more golf. But I enjoy it because I want to pass it on, because I have a passion, and I got irritated enough that I want to go out and do something about it. And so that's why I do this. These guys, you can call them. Believe me, you can call them, and from even Ross Perot you can get through to. It may take you a while, and if you call the first time, I mean, if he's never heard of you, Ross isn't going to, I mean, even his lowest administrative assistant won't call you back unless you call 5, 6, 8, 10 times. Although they got through the bus the first time. I mean, he's starving. You know? Yes?
I was going to ask you from the point of view of...
Oh, microphone. Well, you're the radio guy. I mean, you live with a mic in your
I
hand.
can project better than that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I hope. From the mentor's point of view, though, you get a cold call from somebody like that just out of the blue, and like you said, there's a stack of messages, and there's this message to somebody who you don't recognize. Besides the idea of wanting to pass it on, what goes through your mind in terms of what's in it for you?
I'll call Lorraine, I'll say, have we ever heard of this guy?
Yeah.
And she'll go, no. Or I'll call Leanne, or I'll call Valerie in Scotland. Excuse me. Do we know this guy? No. Then I'll tell Lorraine, call him, see what the guy wants. Who is he? And she does, and she comes back, and, you know, most times I'll talk to them. If they're trying to sell me something, insurance or something, you know, I'm not, you know. But I do. I respond. And virtually all high-performance people will respond that way. And they'll sit down and they'll talk to you. Pardon? Yeah, they will. Okay. Any questions on how you get a mentor, how you find one? Okay. Now, an extremely important part of being a high-performance person is building the perception before you are a high-performance person. And this ties in with your comfort zone. So this will be a big hurdle. Now, I don't have it here. Let's see. So can we... I always looked and thought of myself as being this way before I had this painting painted. My wife also has a 10-foot painting, equally as nice, although mine won the first place award, and my wife won the second place at the National Academy for Portrait Painters in London. But I've always thought of myself, since I'm an adult, like this. My perception of myself is this. How do you perceive yourself when you shave for the men? And I haven't looked if any of the women have to shave. Okay. Or when the women put their makeup on, or whatever, you know, in the morning. You know, how you perceive yourself. How do you think of yourself? Do you think of yourself as something special? You know that crap you're supposed to tell kids, oh, you're special. I ask my kids, are you special? Yeah, we're just so special because we have you as a father. And then they go. That's the truth. And I may bring one of my kids here tomorrow, and first Kelly will go, and then the moron say, she'll get up and sing for you. But I mean, you should think. My kids know they're special, they just don't need to hear it from me, because they know that's part of the 5 credo crap, as they say. But, you know, high performance people, as I've already indicated, all love themselves. And they all think they're special. And they all see themselves in a similar light. Some of them see themselves with halos, which I don't have a halo. I don't see myself with a halo. Maybe some horns, but not a halo. And these people see themselves like that. That's one of the reasons, not the only reason. I wanted to have this painting done. And I had another painting done of my wife that hang in the castle in the drawing room. These 2 big, humongously large things. And it's part of, remember I told you about when you have a goal and you have visualize, you have an anchor. You know, I can't be in, even though my favorite clothes, and if they ever do that profile on me in the Rob Report, my favorite clothes are a t-shirt and boxer shorts. I walk around the castle that way. And I walk into the drawing room and I see that. I mean, it's an anchor. I see all the other stuff around, but that's an anchor. And because this is how I think of myself. And, can we cut the lights again? This is, you know, my wife and I saw this. You know, I read you some of the goal things that my wife's, our big estate, or foreign estate overseas, and with the servants' quarters and the this and the that. We perceived ourselves, and perception is reality. I acted like I lived in this place before I lived there. And when I bought this and got 1,100% financing, 10 years, bullet, and I didn't even pay the interest. They funded me, they loaned me money for the interest every month. They just kept loaning it to me. And they say, well, you could do that in the middle 80s, Dan. I bought a $4 million house in Houston, which was built by the founder of Exxon, and I borrowed $5 million on a $4 million house. Because I told him I needed some money. My wife wanted to do some touch-ups. Guess what? They loaned it to me. I don't believe in that, you know, 60%, you need 40% equity. I don't understand that language. You know, I like all the bank's money. I don't like any of mine. I got better things to do. My wife can spend my money better than that. No rates of return on what my wife spends it on, but esoterically it looks better. But that's the perception, because I walk in and people perceive that I am a high-performance person and I am successful. Because high-performance people, ladies and gentlemen, get paid for performing their hobbies. Their hobbies. Not the drudgery, 9 to 5, 8 to 6, or whatever, Monday through Friday, on Tuesday wishing it was, you know, the weekend. I don't know Saturday from Tuesday. I just don't. I mean, it's all the same to me. My wife, you know, reminds me when I'm supposed to be someplace that's important to her and the family. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there, I'm sure, you know. She looks at my itinerary and she fills in stuff, and, you know, like on December 11th, I know I'm supposed to go see my son at his theater arts program up at the Will Greer Theater up in Topanga. Right? Okay. My kid's in there with the hippies and the pot smokers up in Topanga doing a rendition of Shakespeare. So I don't know what he's doing up there. But I know December 11th, come hell or high water. Now, in the old days, you know, when I was not such a kinder, gentler person like I am now, if I was doing a deal, I mean, I just roll over that date. I wouldn't even think about it. But now that I'm a kinder, gentler, mature, caring, and loving parent, Linda's shaking her head no. I'm going to do my very best to be there, unless a deal comes up, Bruce. Unless we got a deal, we got to close on a company, then I'll be there. Guns and swords. But we get paid for what it seems to be like we're performing our hobbies. And all high-performance people, because of our perception of ourselves, I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. And that's for sure. I may be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. Never, ever, ever show doubt. And we're going to talk about, later today and tomorrow, sharing doubts. You don't share doubts with your employees. You don't share doubts with anybody. The deal is always in the positive. The glass is always completely full. Okay. Now these are, in my judgment, the 20 biggest misconceptions in business. The hypothesis is conventional wisdom almost always wrong. Pardon? No. At our $15,000 seminar, we give them to you on a laminated deal. You know. Yeah, we give them. You know, we also pump smoke up your ass. I mean, we do the whole 9 yards. More control, not less control. People think more controls you've got on the business, the better it is. It's just the opposite. I've already talked about that. They think conventional wisdom says you should have pride of authorship. You should be, but it shouldn't conflict with selling the deal and letting loose of a deal and getting it financed. I tell the story. I've got an engineer with a patent on something comes to me, and I've spent 14 years on this, and I've been offered money, but they want 40% of the equity. If I put up all the money, I take 85% of the equity minimum. Minimum. 85, I like 95. That's your negotiating band. That's it. If I put up my time, no money, I take minimum 10 to 15%, depending on the time, and then I want an option to buy in at book value, big chunk. And so that, the pride of authorship guys, that normally kills. They roll over and die. Okay, no free equity. No, most people that attend this seminar at the beginning have never given away equity in their deals. They just don't. All high-performance people, Perot, Trump, Gates, Scully, Jobs, Rick Scott, all give away equity. There is not one high-performance person that I know of, dating back to Andrew Carnegie, who was the grandfather. In modern times, if you can call that modern times, there is nobody that I know that hasn't given away equity. None. In a public company, you give away stock options and things like that. Or you form subsidiary spin-outs and give away portions of the company. Common consensus or conventional wisdom says no. Because the entrepreneur, the owner, wants to be a stingy guy like Rick, I can't think of the cheap screw's name. Rick Smith doesn't want to give away equity. He's done everything except give away the equity so far that I've recommended. And that's the thing that's holding him back, in my judgment, from making a quantum explosion in his growth. Okay, everybody tells you cost control is the most important aspect of running a business. And revenue is not. It's not true. You can always find people to do cost control. Revenue, you can never have too much revenue. Never. Goals should be realistic. That's crap. We're going to have goals that we can't accomplish in our lifetime. Does that sound realistic to you? The Mouse from the South, Teddy Turner, my new idol for the 90s. Share doubts only with trusted associates. You share doubts with nobody. Not even your spouse. You keep them locked up here in your bird brain, to the extent that you got one. I'll give you a little example. Several years ago, I come back, we were working on a big transaction, and I come back, and I find that the deal is collapsing. And what had happened is, the vice chairman's wife was at one of these health spa places, a pseudo-fat farm, and she was in the steam room with somebody else, and she shared a doubt because the vice chairman had asked me how things going. I think things are getting a little rocky. That's all I said. And the rest of the sentence was, but we'll get it done. Make a long story short, she told a woman in the steam bath, and there was a daughter of one of our key employees in the steam bath that overheard this. By the time it got back to the company was going out of business. It took me several weeks to trace it down, like a dog, like a drug dog at an airport, until I found out what happened, and it taught me. And I only said the deal was getting rocky. That's all I said. You don't share doubts. Never. Never, ever, 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 ever. Super success is for everyone. That is the biggest load of crap that was ever written. Because it's not. It just isn't. If you haven't figured that out by now, then we've got a gun for you can use in the parking lot on yourself. And you can have it all, balanced life. God. Eric Hayden, 36-inch thighs. You think he feels balanced? Walking like this? I mean, Olympic athletes spending 10, 12 hours training. Is that balanced? The hours they're not training, they're sleeping. I mean, that's not, you can't have it all. You can't have a balanced life. I have more of a balanced life now because I already made a bunch of money. All these guys, after they made a bunch of money, then they get balanced. You can do it alone. No, no, no. It ought to be not. You cannot do it alone. If it wasn't for the input of people like Mr. Gratzos, Mr. Orman, who's in the back of the room, and Mr. Newman, I couldn't have done it. I can do it on the cheap. This is a few of you here. I can get good advice at seminars for nothing. What a load of crap that is. You get what you pay for in life. The advice you get for nothing is worth nothing. I can get high-performance advice from my peers. What a joke. Your peers are all morons. Morons leading to morons. They're not my peers. If you hang around with them, they're your peers. Short-term solutions work for long-term problems. God, they may work, it's like a quick fix, but I mean, they don't work. They never have and they never will. Fear of failure isn't caused by lack of self-esteem and confidence. The fear of failure is only caused by lack of self-esteem and lack of confidence. Super successful people can do many things at once. Not. Super successful people focus on the few, not the many. I can only do 2 or 3 things well, preferably 2. Experience makes you ready for success. Not. Experience doesn't make you ready for success. Comfort makes you ready for success. Experience has nothing to do with it. Perfectionists and detail-oriented people find it easier to succeed in business. Not. I don't know a high-performance person that's detail-oriented. Period. Professionals cannot be used as allies. Not. You can have your accountants and lawyers be part of your deals and have their fees contingent. If you don't think so, you're dealing with the wrong ones. And I don't care how big the firms are. Business should run smoothly. Not. If your business is running smoothly, by definition, ladies and gentlemen, I can guarantee you categorically with no reservation, your business is not growing, it's dying. And I can give you a gun again and go out in the parking lot. You let yourself down when you lose focus. You let yourself down, you let your business down, and you let your family down when you lose focus. You let mankind down because you shouldn't have been born. That's a new one. I'm going to have to add that. I like that. I'm going to have to add that one. And last but not least, set time limits for goals. No. Time limits act as restrictions. As soon as you humanly, or not humanly, as soon as you possibly can, should follow all your goals. These are Peña's 20 misconceptions of business, and virtually everybody follows every single one of them. And that's why high-performance people are, one or two. Any questions on any of the 20? Like there's the 10 Commandments, This is just like these. These ought to be in stone. Yes, sir.
On number 3, it said no free equity, and then you made a comment after that about...
There should be. You should give away equity. You should give part of your deals, part of your transactions. I mean, first of all, if you have lawyers and accountants that are getting part of the deal, they'll always go through. Trust me.
Then you said after that, if not free equity, a spin-off.
Oh, no. If not free equity in the holding company, in my case, you have subsidiaries, like, i.e., Fire Resources.
Thanks.
I mean, virtually every single high-performance person and all the names that I've talked about gives away equity in their deals. I don't know one single, because they all know it works. Yes, sir?
What kind of equity would you give away to your lawyer?
Okay, well, these are outside lawyers and accountants?
Yeah.
Well, no, what I do is I make their fees contingent on the deal. Normally what I do, let's just say that the normal fee for this lawyer for this particular deal is $25,000, using easy numbers. I'd say, I'll give you $40,000 if it's successful. I'll give you $5,000 if the deal goes in the toilet.
Sliding scale payment.
Well, no, but sliding scale, but it's more than that, because then you'll never have a lawyer kill one of your deals. I mean, it becomes self-evident that the miserable bastard will make sure the deal goes through. Accountants, Coopers and Lybrand, who were my accountants for many, many, many years, I mean, they knew that if we did successful transactions, I never argued about the fees. I mean, Mary Beth Miller was the partner at the time after Charlie left the company and joined me. And I mean, we didn't argue. I mean, that I knew that they were going to stand up and be counted. When, Coopers and Lybrand's a big name. I mean, they come up and and we're going to talk about that later today and tomorrow. And that's why you should, in my judgment, you should use as big a companies as that you cannot afford, not that you can afford.
That's John here. Companies you can't afford.
Well, we're going to get to that. But, I mean, you're right. That could be 21. Use companies that you cannot afford. Okay. Now we're going to talk about how you get all these doofuses together to create your dream team. The dream team is twofold. Number one, it's the people that are directly in your organization. And it's, in addition to that, it's the people that represent you outside lawyers, accountants, petroleum engineers in my case in years gone by, etc., etc. Without this effectively understanding how you create your dream team, most of what I've talked about you can't do, you can't accomplish. Because you cannot do it alone. It is impossible, virtually impossible, to do it alone, to do what we've talked about here in the last day and a half. Now, most great leaders begin in the capacity of followers. They became great leaders because they were intelligent followers before I became a leader. And by the way, another requisite, or the requisite that we're referring to now to be a high-performance person is to be a leader of persons, individuals, men, women, children. And all these guys that I've alluded to are leaders. They just are. None of the high-performance individuals that I've alluded to in the last day and a half aren't anything but leaders. They're not managers. They're not systems people, administrators, none of that junk. They're leaders. I'm a leader. Scully is a leader. Gates is a leader. Lee Iacocca is a leader. Ross Perot is a leader. They want you to lead. Your people want to be led. They want to be like in the tummy of a kangaroo, soft and warm and cuddly. They don't want you to tell them, we may not be able to do this. They don't want to hear that cash flow is short. They don't want to know they can't buy that other house at the lake. They don't want to hear any of those things. They want to hear, like Mr. Orman used to when he ran a big conglomerate, everything's fine, we're buying another company. Trust me, they don't want to hear the bad news, yet you keep on heaping it on them. It's lonely at the top. That's why it's lonely. They don't want to hear all that junk. They just don't. They want to just hear, Dan, everything's fine. When, you know, we had an acquisition drop out of bed, fall into the deepest crevice of the world, and I come out of retirement or out from the castle, like whenever I watch Superboy, that new program, Superboy and Jane, or whatever it is on TV. It's
Clark and Lois.
Yeah, Clark and Lois, that's it. Okay. I'm not too great on details. Anyway, and he swoops down. You said, oh, that looked like me, swooping over from Scotland on the Concorde so I could save a deal. That's what they want to believe in. And it's our job to help them see that that's their reality. That's why you don't share doubts. To be a leader, first learn to manage yourself. Use discipline and creativity to really get the job done. Most people don't know how to manage themselves, let alone anybody else. They don't. You got to be able to take care of yourself. That's why most parents are so lousy at being parents. Because they don't, you know, they can't manage themselves. How can you manage a little kid's life if you can't take care of your own life? How can you? Well, we got to call Judy Cook. I need the psychiatrist here because she used to be able to plug in crap about this stuff. You know, I'm going to have to slap her around. She's making too much money. She better come back for a little more refill of me. A CEO to me and the high-performance people in a company is like a rider is a bunking bronco. You're going to see it later. Napoleon Hill said you should always have at least 1 or 2 people training to take your job. I wanted 4 or 5 trying to take my job, cut my head off, stab me in the back at all times. I had 4 or 5 guys working for me, with me, that were all smarter than me, better educated than me, hungrier than me. Ultimately, one of them got to be CEO, but he's not the one that chopped my head off. Somebody else, they had to import a smart guy to chop my head off. But see, just imagine every day you went to work, they were trying to chop your head off.
It's motivating.
You're damn right it's motivating, but you got to feel real comfortable with yourself. You're going to go play golf, and while you're gone, Jesus, what's going to happen? That's how, but you got to have people that are smarter than you, as good as you or better. That's how you have a growing company. Rick Scott's got a half a dozen really smart guys. that are running that company. Now Rick's off making speeches, and he's, you know, but it's like a bucking bronco, a rider. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one that gets you all. It gets everybody. This is where the first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has surrounded himself with. I used to go around individual by individual, but that became too embarrassing. I don't do that anymore because I'm a kinder, gentler, you know? Because I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm not here to make you look like a moron. I'm not here to make you seem like a doofus. But most of you, ladies and gentlemen, have morons working for you. Or as they used to tell me down in Louisiana, morons. Got a moron working for you. I had the brightest, most aggressive, cunning, stealth-like weasels that you could find, high-priced weasels that you could find. I had easily 4 or 5 guys who could be CEOs of major corporations that reported to me. And one of them is currently CEO, and like he said, and I talked to him a few days ago, Dan, it's a bitch being boss, you know? It is. With the big money comes the big problems. But just, if everything else I said just falls on deaf ears, just go back and think about who you have around you. Your cousin, your brother-in-law, some doofus. Just think about who you got around you. Or, better yet, think about the guys that you look up to, who they've got around them. And either you won't look up to them anymore, or you will. It's that simple. You can't be a high-performance group unless you adhere to this. And with this group, you tell them, if you tell them, they'll forget it. If you show them, they'll forget it. But if you involve them, they'll understand and grow with you. That's why I allow people to make mistakes. That's why even the Mosby brothers are going to make mistakes. It comes with the territory. But I'm involving them in the process. They're getting experience now that they never had before. I think that's an understatement. You do not lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, according to Dwight Eisenhower. That's not leadership. There's an old story when they were planning for the invasion of Normandy. General Montgomery and General Eisenhower were getting in an argument about, of course, General Eisenhower was a senior guy there, but Montgomery Monty was giving him a lot of baloney about whether they should have general officers landing with the troops. And Eisenhower said yes, and as it turned out, 2-star generals and below landed with the troops. And in fact, Theodore Roosevelt's nephew, who was a 1-star general, actually, yeah, 1-star general, died at Normandy. And Ike took a string like this, and he said no, and he's trying to illustrate a point that if the generals were in the back, the invasion would look like this, and he says, but if the generals were in the front, because you lead from the front, and your people want you to lead from the front. They don't want you to lead from the back. You are the example. You set the example. The more successful you are, the more successful they'll want to be. But you have to lead from the front. If anything goes bad, as Bear Bryant used to say, I did it. If anything goes semi-good, we did it. If anything goes really good, they did it. it's you take, when I dealt with the Japanese government, whatever went wrong was my fault, whatever went good was theirs. And I was the managing partner. Oh, that's my doofus cue. Now, there was a gentleman named Peter, S-E-N-G-E. I don't know how you pronounce that. That's Mr. He's the new modern day person for organization. And this is from an article from Fortune magazine, October 17th issue. And he wrote a book called The Fifth Discipline in 1990. And some of what we're talking about, he alludes to in the book. But one of the basic precepts of his thinking, which the only reason I bring it up because it agrees with my thinking. Anybody that doesn't agree with my thinking, we don't talk about. But one of the precepts of his thinking is that there's not enough leadership in management anymore. Because an entrepreneur is basically a leader. I mean, and when we talk about the transitions in management, from entrepreneur to manager to leader, he goes around and preaches to Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies how to promote leadership in their organizations. And there is not that much. And leadership isn't just at the CEO position or the head position. Leadership has to be throughout the positions, down to middle management. And he contends, and I agree, that one of the reasons with the economic corporate system today is there's not enough leaders in corporate America anymore. Other than the head guys, there aren't any corporate leaders. And so he runs around the country, gets paid quite a bit of money to how a big company that has decades upon decades of tradition, how you create leadership at the middle levels. Now, most of you run your organizations, or most people that attend this seminar run their organizations using the top management scale. One person, 10 or 12 or 6 or 8 people report to him. And I've already told you it's my judgment, and in the judgment of other high performance people, you can only have 2 or 3 people report to you max. The ideal situation is where you have, and this isn't creating layers, it isn't, because most of you would only have 1 layer. You'd have the 3 guys below him, perhaps the boss, and they take care of everything else. But this is a recipe for disaster. This is a recipe for disaster. I can give you my Beretta and you can go out and shoot your brains out, because sooner or later this will be a disaster. This is better, but still not good, because you've got 5 people reporting, and then we've got 5 more reporting, and this is more ideal, where you've got 2 or 3 people reporting to the CEO. I had 2 people reporting to me. I had 2 divisions, and they ran many, 22 subsidiaries. But nobody had more than 2 people to report to him. You can't physically keep on top. I don't care what you think, you can't. And if I and other high performance people can't, how can an untrained? You just can't. It's virtually impossible. Now, some of you have seen this. This is one of my favorite charts, because it kind of brings the doofusism in business out. By definition, you all grew geometrically when you started your businesses. You've forgotten how to do that. You've lost the passion. And because of the satiation and low expectations, it flattens out. And then when you go from 0 employees to 1 or 2 or 3, you become a manager, and you learn to manage kind of in a half-assed way, and you're managing some people. But this is the crossroads many businesses are at, right here. And the letter that I wrote, the young man from Canada who talked his boss into giving him the chief operating job, he drew this, apparently, for his boss, because you're at a crossroads. You're either going to become a leader, some people call it professional managers. Some of you are better bringing in a professional manager and walking away from your company. Some of you are better off bringing in a professional manager and walking away and never looking back. Or you stay the same, you stay a manager, or you stay an entrepreneur and you go in the toilet with a tidy bowl man. That's where I'm best. Helping people. Right there. You may not like what I say. You got to walk away like Burl. She did. Took a lot of grit. But she's $15 million, $20 million richer today. That kind of soothed it, didn't it? It made it feel better, didn't it?
Hey, I got a point to make there. She also said she spent $70,000 on seminars.
She did.
There must be a correlation.
Yeah. This is where, and it's tough because, the problem is here and it's us. And it's tough for an entrepreneur or somebody that's working, started their own company, or heads up this, small to medium-sized company to say that the company's going to be better off if I walk out the door. Well, that's hard. It's not always true, but it's true most of the time. But by definition, all of you that have started a business know what exponential growth is, because by definition, you all did it. So what I'm saying, even though you may not have practiced it in recent years, you understand. Oh, I already did that. Okay. The more self-esteem you give others, the more you have. The more self-esteem you have, the easier it is to give. It's easy for me to give the responsibility to the Mosbys because I feel good about myself. I know they're going to make mistakes. But I feel good about it because I know that I'm smart enough, experienced enough, savvy enough, no matter what they do, I can undo, like I did with the Mexican morons. I just know. There's nobody in this room that can get in too deep a hole that I can't get you out of. None. That's how confident. I've done it. I've resurrected myself 5 times from death, financial death, and I've resurrected, I don't know how many transactions, no matter how many companies, so many companies, I can't count them all. I often think if I go up and touch them in the forehead, they're going to fall down like those guys do on TV. Yeah. I know, I'm not saying that, that I could turn around General Motors overnight, but I sure as hell can turn around anybody coming to these seminars. I know I could turn around General Motors. It wouldn't take me overnight. I'd have to fire probably 40% of the people, but... Ladies and gentlemen, I've said this. Self-esteem is the foundation of excellence in business. Self-esteem is the foundation of excellence in business. Self-esteem is the foundation of excellence in a personal relationship, and I'm not a personal relationship guy. Right, Linda? Self-esteem is the foundation to everything that's good. And unfortunately, most people don't have much. Because they may read the books, I'm okay, you're okay, but they don't believe it. They just don't.
Subliminal tape will help you.
Well, the only subliminal tapes I ever listened to about golf, and they didn't help my putting much. But that's probably more credit to me, not the tapes.
Well, they help. I ran 3 machines, 24 hours a day for a year. They do help.
Well, good. If that worked for you, that's great. Now, Andrew Carnegie, a much more articulate man than I, these were his 4 rules for super success. And look at what was number 1. Contrary to the 80s and 90s doctrine about soft lights and music. Can anybody read that in the first row? What's it say?
Financial motive must fail.
You damn right. Money.
Mo money.
Mo money. That's exactly right. Mo money. Let's see. Mo. Mo money. I don't know if that's how you spell mo. Mo money. Even Andrew knew that. Since the beginning of time. Mo money. Gets people clicking. His second was never reprimand employees instead of asking them questions revealing their own faults. This has been a little difficult for me over the years, but I'm learning. I'm still learning. Number 3, 1 or more men training for his job. I believe in that. I've had that. I've had as many as 5. And 4, never make decisions for employees. Allow them to make their own and give them the responsibility and authority to implement their own actions. Right, boys? Yeah. I gave a speech about a year and a half ago as part of Rebuild LA. I went around with the young Mayor Vargas, and we were giving speeches to high schools. And I drove on campus, and I drove my Rolls, and Fidel said, maybe we want to take my car, you know. And I said, no, I drove the Rolls right up on campus, and I left it there. And we got about 100 feet on campus, and I said, why are there all these security guards here? Every 100 to 200 feet, there was a security guard, a cop, off-duty cop. And Fidel says, you'll see, just wait. So I'm there about 40 minutes before I'm going to make my speech, and 2 fights broke out. 1 fight young men, 1 fight young girls. If you haven't lived till you've seen girls fight, it was ugly. Jesus. I mean, it was vicious. I mean, these 2 Hispanic girls going at each other. I mean, it was awful. It was over a guy. So I'm in the stadium. There's 2,300 students. And the superintendent of schools gets up and introduces us, and introduces Fidel Vargas, who was the youngest mayor in the United States. After he got out of Harvard, he was home for something, and he ran for mayor, decided Baldwin Park was going down the tubes. The same guy was going to be mayor 20, 30 years in a row, and he ran against him and beat him. Now, Fidel is Harvard, straight-A student in high school, all-conference baseball and football and these different things. Goody two-shoes, never got in trouble, you know. Wouldn't say shit if it was in his mouth. And then me. And so Fidel's up there talking to the kids and relating, you know, and they could relate a little because he is Hispanic. And then I get up there, and they're making a lot of noise in the audience. And I said, can't we keep these kids, you know, shut them up? And I said, and the gym coaches were roving up and down the aisles so they wouldn't stab each other, I don't know. And so he says, we can't beat them anymore, Mr. P, because we go to jail now. And so I told the kids to shut up, or I was going to get up there, I was going to rip their tongues out. So they started to be quiet. And I said, and I got up and I'm talking to them, and I said, how many of you have been arrested once? About 80% of the student body. How many had been arrested twice? About 50% of the student body. How many had been arrested 3 times? About 15% of the student body. And I still got my hand up. And the superintendent of schools is sitting back here. Why has Pena got his hand up? How many have been arrested 4 times? 4-time losers. About 2% of the student body. And I've still got my hand up. I said, kids, I'm not bragging about having been thrown in jail 4 times. But at some time, you got your get screwed on straight. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Because you can't relate to goody two-shoes here, but you can relate to me. Because I've been where you are, and I'll kick your ass. And similar, I had a little discussion with Mr. Taylor's young son. Who's joining us, by the way. Yeah, who walks like this. Yeah. But I'm still slightly stronger than he is, at least for right now, probably not next month. And so, but kids relate to that instantly. And then I went through the story of all the trouble I got in, and God knows I got in a lot of it. And the fact that I'm from East LA, and so, and I drove my Rolls onto campus, I wasn't afraid. And so the student body, or the, what do you call it, the superintendent of schools was deathly afraid. And then the kid said, hey, Mr. P. I said, yes, young man. Can you adopt me? Can you adopt me? And I said, and all these kids started yelling, can you adopt me? Can you adopt me? And I said, no, I've already got 3 kids. Man of your wealth, you ought to have 15, 20, 30 kids. And I said, well, that sounds like my Hispanic mother. But the kids could instantly relate. And in Mr. Carnegie, the things that I instantly relate to are financial motive. And anybody that tells you any different, and I'm not taking anything away from all the guys that are out here making a living doing this, but it's money. I mean, you can candy coat it, you can do a lot of things with it, but it's financially. If they're going to be more secure financially, if their family's going to be better taken care of, I mean, it's money. They don't necessarily have to love you, but we're not in a wartime situation. I know how to lead people in that too, but it's money. And treat them with respect. And the things that we've talked about will be so much easier. You have no idea. Now, are there any questions about what we've talked about reference this so far? Understand? Well, money's pretty easily understood. I mean, everybody understands money. International language. And when people do something wrong, or you decide that you've done something wrong, what you tell people is next time. You know, and I've only developed this in recent years, but because before I was into the rip their skin off, beat them in the head, assault. But next time. And they understand that, because you don't have to point out people making a mistake. They know that. I mean, even our kids know when they do something wrong, and irrespective of what they tell us. Now, we're going to talk about the rest of the dream team now is outside advisors. We've talked about internal employees and how we compensate them, how we get their attention, how we get their passion. In order to really succeed in business, you need outside advisors. These advisors must be trusted advisors. To have trusted advisors, you need a very special relationship with someone at the firm. You need a mole. The perfect mole is someone who is motivated, aggressive, ambitious, but not as bright as he or she thinks. That covers probably some of the people in the audience. Maybe all. Let's see here. And when dealing with the opinionated or egotistical, always give them credit, or give credit where credit is not due. Okay, now part of your dream team, you need a lawyer, accountant, a banker for starters, minimum. Okay, how do we get them? That's what we're going to talk about now. Let's start with lawyers. And they're not the scumbags that, you know, they talk about at Virginia Country Club, but you know, you cannot effectively grow your business without a first-class attorney stroke law firm. You can't. Impossible. It is not possible. I will even go further to say, if you're a superstar, rock star, baseball player, you cannot effectively grow your business, grow your career without a first-class lawyer stroke law firm. Now, my lawyers, I have 3 law firms that represent me. Charleston, Revich, something and something, O'Melveny and Myers, and Richards Butler, which is in England. And I've always had big-time law firms, even when I couldn't afford it. But what I did is I found an associate that was normally 1 or 2 years from partnership, man or woman. And I've had women partners represent me. Not too many, but a few. And then what I make sure is I help them get promoted ahead of the curve. I give them all the legitimate business that I have. I don't spread it around. And I make sure they know, I know they got promoted because of me, and I make sure the firm knows that they got promoted ahead of the curve because of me. Then you own them. And I don't mean in an unhonorable way. You own them. And then when they've got AT&T and you as a client, and you've got an offer and you've got a document that has to get done, AT&T's their bread and butter, but they'll do yours in the middle of the night over the weekend. You own them. And if they change firms, as long as it's no worse than lateral, and if it's up, you go with them. And you take their... Yes, Bruce?
What talents did you look at them when you were finding that associate?
That's a good question. Several. Number one, that they were there on the weekends. They were there at night when I called up to have a question answered. They answered the phone at 10:30 at night.
These are the lawyers?
These are the young associates, soon-to-be partners. That they were there, that they responded to me when I called within 30 minutes on the weekend. If I left a message on their voicemail. Cyrus Vance Martyr IV, who's the associate soon-to-be partner at Sussman Godfrey, the big litigating firm I use in Houston. I leave on a voicemail. except for like maybe between the hours of 1 in the morning and 6 in the morning, his time, he gets back to me in 30 minutes. I don't care where he is. And then you make sure that this kid, you do everything humanly possible to make sure this kid becomes a partner. Because now you've got a young partner, knows where his bread's buttered, is closer to the law. Young partners are closer to the law than old partners. They don't have that preconditioned crap. They'll work their ass off for you. In fact, Cyrus Vance is in Sacramento right now, and he was hoping he'd get done with his deposition so he could come down here, so he could tell some stories about how irreverent I treat lawyers, and especially associates. He's going to be partner next year. Smart kid, real smart kid, nice kid. Sent him to the castle as a gift. Him and his wife, vacation, after we won, you know, the big suit. You do the same at an accounting firm, a big accounting firm. You don't all have to use big 6 accounting firms, but use, you know, a big firm, not two accountants and a receptionist. Because when banks look at those numbers, they laugh. When you hand banks internal numbers, they laugh. They get hysterical, they throw up. When you hand them numbers from some doofus little accounting firm, they don't pass out and throw up, but they still laugh. It's much easier to borrow money. It's much easier to have financial institutions be in your camp when you have numbers that are respected. Now, I happen to have numbers that were respected even before they got audited, because I had a world-class finance guy that was my chief financial officer the last few years I was there, a guy named John Ernest. He was world-class finance.
Good number.
Pardon?
What's a good number?
What do you mean a good number?
Well, you said if you only have like 1 or 2 professionals.
Oh, no. I mean, a medium-sized accounting firm, a medium-sized law firm that's got, you know, 50, 100, you know, I mean, the other thing is that if you're going to sue them for malpractice, they got to have some money. When you got Joe Schmaltz and Associates, 3 associates, you got nothing to sue when they screw up. So, I mean, it's a defensive measure as well. I mean, you know, most of the accounts people deal, I mean, so you can't sue them. When they perform or they commit malpractice, what are you going to do to them? Nothing. Probably don't have any insurance. You can bet your butt Coopers and Lyman's got plenty of insurance. I've never had to sue any of my lawyers or my accountants. I've threatened a few times, but never have. And you find somebody in an accounting firm, you do the same thing. And I never argued fees over getting deals. When I needed opinions to get deals done, I never argued fees. Which coincidentally, it was an unspoken thing. They know I didn't argue. They appreciated I didn't argue. And we got all our deals done. And we all got all our opinions in a timely fashion. Or as they say in the United Kingdom, in due course. All my buddies are doing deals. They're busting their chops, trying to knock them down, do this and that. They never got any deals done. Any fee that you pay for a transaction that doesn't go through is too much. Almost no fee is too much if you get the deal done, because you just wrap it into the deal. You capitalize it. You don't have to be a Harvard MBA to figure that out. You capitalize it and it becomes part of the depreciation base. Who cares? Yet I see people fight over this and fight over it, and they fight over nothing. Doesn't make any difference. Now talked about accountants, talked about lawyers, banks. You find a bank, if you're doing business with a bank that can't take you to the next level, I got the same gun, you can go blow your brains out in the parking lot. I mean, you're destined to not having geometric growth. You should be doing business with at least a bank that it can take you to the next level. You know, these little banks that are, you know, it's got a stockholders' equity of $4 million or $14 million. I mean, Their legal lending limit is, I forget what the ratios used to be. They're changed now because all the banks went out of business. But I mean, they didn't have enough money. They couldn't loan me enough money. And unlike Burl heretofore, I always asked for the bank at least 3 to 5 times more money I needed. Always. You've got to be doing business with a bank that is at least can take you to the next level. And there too, if a senior bank lending officer goes to another bank, it's an upmarket bank, more upmarket, then go with them. Doesn't matter that you've been doing business with this bank 10 years. When you go with that banker, your track record goes with you. If he's the lending officer. And just as I told you, why do people borrow money at the end of the year? Why do all these deals get done? It's because that's when bonuses are paid. I used to think maybe I was the only guy, well, nah, only 50 guys in the country knew that that's why all the deals get done at year end. It's a lot easier when the banker hasn't done any transactions for the first 9 months of the year and you bring them a deal. They're not as careful. I'm not saying that they're going to do anything that's not right, but they're not as strict, they're not as careful. And most of your deals are going to be shaky anyway. Shaky at best. Does everybody understand? It's extremely important, because you can't go where I'm talking about. You can't go to that time warp fifth dimension without a supportive law firm, supportive accounting firm, and supportive bank. Impossible. Yes, sir. Can we have a mic, please?
How do you find a bank, a good bank?
I knew I was going to be asked that question. Look in your folder.
That's the venture capitalist does?
Okay. And wait a second here. Going to take me. There was that's one, that list. But in the, I'm getting ahead of myself. But in, when is this? Last week or the week before in the LA Times, or no, LA Business Journal, Who's Who, LA's Foremost Money Movers. It was sponsored by Duluth Touche. They list the Shakers. This is where I got all my money. I'm no genius. I just, when a guy puts his name in this, he's not doing it so that somebody can assassinate him. He's doing it because he's got money to put out. Am I the only one in Los Angeles kind of reads this thing? This is where I got all my money. They print the son of a bitch once a quarter. Why do you think they print this? For toilet paper to put in my bird cage or what? They got money, excess money to loan. Yes, sir.
What's the name of them?
I'm going to slap that kid upside the head. Okay, this is called the Los Angeles Business Journal. Only been around about 500 years. This is the Who's Who, LA's Foremost Money Movers, Banking and Finance, special section sponsored by Duluth Touche, or whatever the name is. And all these, and they name all the Shakers, and I mean, I've sucked some money out of some of these guys. Because they got excess money.
They post all their earnings for the bank.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard. Sometimes I'm thinking, you know, and I came from a stupid neighborhood. I mean, maybe I'm the only guy who's got any common sense left in the world. I don't know. But I assure you, that's where all the other guys go, too. And you don't see the little doofus bank you're doing business with in here. It's not that hard. It's so damn easy. It's criminal. All you got to do is read. The Mexican morons, then, you know, where do I go to get money? I said, well, can you read English? We know you got in on a minority deal, but can you read English? It's not that hard. People used to say, where did you get $1 billion, Dan? I mean, it's just not that hard. I got $1 billion. I went wherever in the world they were lending money. That's how I got it. Oops. Wherever in the world they were lending money, Dan Pena was there. There is somebody stupid enough to loan you money for your deal somewhere in the world. There is someone stupid enough. There is. There's no...
Way down that list.
Pardon? Pardon?
Way down that list.
Yeah. I mean, when I search for, there just is, I mean, they list them. That's why they have these things. And they've got one for New York, and they got one for Florida. They got, the list that I printed out for you is all over the country, that list. This deal in the LA Business Journal is just LA.
But they'll lend money to anybody.
Yeah, but you're right. These guys will lend you money anywhere.
California real estate.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, God, it's not that hard. I keep telling you, I like to think I'm smart, but I'm not that smart.
So it's just a matter of knocking on enough doors.
Oh, let me give you a good question. Okay. When I taught my class at Northridge, I started off with 415 students, and I wound up with 1. And because I just kept heaping on pressure, and we only had one little kid named John Macias, and when we got down to about 15, I had Fidel Vargas again, the young mayor, over, and we're talking about they were all complaining they had no internships, they had no job offers, etc. And so I asked them how many resumes the 15 had sent out. 3, 15. The most resumes anybody had sent out was 30. I bring a little Vargas in, and he gets up, and I said, Mayor Vargas, how many resumes did you send out? He says, 700. How many job offers did you get? And he goes, 1. It's a numbers game. I've called on more financial institutions than this group put together. I have personally given at least 300 to 350 personal one-on-one bank financial institution presentations. Me, Dan Pena. Now, I'm not counting my Wall Street days. I'm only counting since I started, been in business for myself. I've called on banks in Mexico, Buenos Aires, Chile, South Africa, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Norway, Sweden, Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Scotland, England, all over Canada, in 40 of the 50 states, and I always got the money. There's somebody moronic enough to give you what you need. Anybody tells me that they can't get the money because they don't want it bad enough. Hoffman, there is somebody moronic enough, probably in that LA Business Journal, to finance your doofus deal. No question. Probably somebody probably stupid enough in Virginia. Or you probably don't even have to go past the first tee. So do we understand where we get money? But so you got to make the calls. You got to go see the people. Yes, sir. Mike, we got to get that doofus that was like at Abraham's running up and down here, like on a scooter.
That became me, though.
Oh. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if I'm getting mixed signals or it's just maybe my ears. You keep saying they have to be stupid enough, but doesn't that show that they got a little bit of sense if they would lend you some money?
No, I'm being sarcastic when I say that. No, there's somebody. See, because most of the deals that come out, are bad. They shouldn't be financed. And yet, but you can still find somebody to finance them because they're not as bad as somebody else's deals. And they got to put the money out. How do banks make money? You got to put it out. Trust me. First bank that loaned me any big money was Mid-Atlantic Bank in New Jersey. I saw their ad. It says, "We're the Hungry Bank," and it's got the chairman of the board doing the... When I saw that, I said, "Charlie, we're getting on the first plane to New Jersey." Oh, and I said, "I'm a boy." And in Mid-Atlantic's headquarters, and God, I mean, you need a long-range bomber with refueling capability to get there. It's in the middle of New Jersey. You know, you got to take a train there. It's really an ugly place. Anyway, but we did business. I mean, boy, you found the hungry client here. You hit the jackpot. And the first loan we got from him, I think, was $3.4 million. And I still remember him signing the documents. His hands were sweating so much he was smearing all and he says, I said, "What's wrong, Frank?" His name was Frank Brangrowski. I think he ultimately became president of the bank. And he says, "Dan, you make me nervous. You make all bankers nervous." I said, "Why?" He says, "You say you're going to take the money, you're going to go to the Bahamas. Right here, you just said it 10 minutes ago." I said, "No, I'm not." I said, but it's got to be a couple $100 million before I go to the Bahamas with it. And he says, "But you're so flagrant about this. I mean, you told the president of the bank the same thing." I said, "Well, you're still giving me the money, aren't you?" "No, we're loaning you the money, Dan. We're not giving it to you." But I've been this way all my life, you know. And so, and we paid them back all the money. And we even paid them a couple finder's fees because they were the ones that introduced me to the guy that we ultimately signed up to go public. And but there's somebody. Why would we were a California-based company getting money loaned from Mid-Atlantic Bank in New Jersey. They had money to put out. I still to this day don't know what interest rate we paid. Didn't care. Never asked. I remember him asking Charlie months later, "You know, nobody's ever asked what interest rate." I think we paid 5 over prime or something. I don't remember. Didn't matter. I needed the money. And if the difference between 1 over prime and 5 over prime was going to kill my deal, somebody ought to shoot me. And we got the money. And we did business with them a long time. And then we went from there to Citibank. And Citibank, we just had carte blanche. I mean, and when we're going to buy something, go to the bank. If you're going to buy a little company, go to the bank that they're doing business with to finance the deal, because they don't want to lose the banking relationship. And they're willing to give you more money on a bad deal just so you keep the banking relationship there. Some of these things, I mean, most of these things, oh, the mic, please. Okay. If you're going to buy something, acquire something that's doing business with Bank of America, go to Bank of America to finance the deal, because they'll give you more money on that deal because they want to keep the financing or the banking relationship, and then Citibank will on a clean deal. Yes, sir. Somebody.
With a startup, 0 assets, couple of computers, a
I've
good
been there, I
program.
understand.
What do you take to them? You know, what do you say? I mean, I don't have a house. My wife does. I don't. What do you take to them to get their interest?
Yeah, I mean, there are still bankers in America. You're going to have to call a lot of them. You may have to call everybody in that list. And you're going to have to make 50, 60, 100 presentations. This is my idea. This is my, you know, I don't have a track record. I've got no assets. I'm willing to put all the receivables. I'm willing to sign the stock of the company over. I'm willing to do it. I mean, they're going to ask for all those, plus a personal guarantee. You know, I need to borrow X thousands or, you know, whatever the money is. You'll find somebody that'll do it.
The answer is a plan that makes sense.
That's correct. And sell the shit out of it, boy.
Enthusiasm.
Boy. Just like you did. You were on that guy like stink on shit, weren't you?
Traveled wherever he went.
Yeah, you weren't going to let go of that sumbitch no matter what, were you?
That bells for rock.
That's right. That's what it takes. Boy, like stink on a skunk, he was on that guy. I've been there. I've done that. I told you the story. I parked my car in front of the guy's driveway, wasn't going to move it until he saw me. It's, you know, but how bad do you want it? You want to just flap your lips about it so you can talk when you're on the third tee and, well, I'm thinking about growing my business. Well, you can join Virginia then, because I got a lot of bullshit artists there. Got no money, but I got a lot of bullshit artists. Or do you really want to make it happen? You can now that we've built our dream team. Now, how do you blow them out when you have to get rid of them? Bruce, When you get rid of someone, never give them a hook back with which to get back in. Always make it clean and definable. A lance right through the heart. Is that where the heart is? Anyway, wherever it is. It's close. A lance, Doc, that's close, right? A lance through the heart. Don't let them, I've never been divorced, but I mean, I would assume that you should do the same thing when you get divorced. No way for them to be back in the deal. Escort them out. Your credit card, your keys right now. And then just escort them right to the door. Don't let, Yes, sir. Mike. Not Mike. We got a mic here? Yeah, I'm not Mike.
How do you structure an equity position and not put them in a position of control?
Okay. It's been a long time since I've been asked this question. It's a good question. You've got to take some risk. Because if you give somebody 2% of your company or 5% of your company or 10% of your company, first of all, being a minority shareholder in the state of California is like kissing your sister, means nothing. You can't, unless you go to court and spend inordinate amount of money, they can't make you do anything. And Florida's the same.
Say it again.
If you're a minority shareholder in a company in the state of California or Florida, your rights are about next to nothing. Zero. The only rights they have is upon liquidation. If you never liquidate the company, then they may have some rights. So don't worry about that. So that's not a problem. If you're going to make dividend distributions, they can force you to pay them their share of the dividends. If you're going to make salary, let's say that you gave an employee, these two loyal employees, just to say, you wouldn't want to do that because I'm not sure how loyal these two guys are, but let's just say you gave me each 2.5% of your deal, and then you paid yourself out a bonus. They're not required to get part of that bonus. You paid out a dividend, you got to pay them something. But let's say you decided to triple your salary.
Not a bad idea.
Well, I know. Well, I do it all the time. I know. I understand that. But then they're not required. You don't have to do anything. It's dividends or liquidation of assets, the assets of the company. Not necessarily, the whole company, not assets within the company, because you can liquidate assets within the company all day long. Doesn't mean that you have to give shareholders a distribution.
Which also makes the stock rather worthless to them to buy back for you, doesn't it? They're not getting anything out of it?
That's correct, but I haven't talked to the Mosbys. Did you ever have dinner with Lou the Weasel?
We're having breakfast tomorrow morning.
So you didn't have dinner?
No, he got slated in Chicago, and he left it on my voicemail. I just didn't check it.
Okay. Well, Lou the Weasel's got 10% of this company that I control, and he has no rights unless I want to give him something. Now, and to the extent I have no intention of doing this, but to the extent that I want to squeeze him out, it's easier to buy back because, it's not worth anything. I've never had to do that. I've kept the minority shareholders in there because I've made some mistakes 4 or 5 times. I've given equity to people that I shouldn't have, in hindsight. But it's always in hindsight. But you will never get more out of an employee. Never. Impossible to get more out than when they become your partner. And when I refer to my people, that we're all partners. I never say I'm senior partner. Everybody knows that. But I'm the majority partner. We're partners. And it's a very effective way to help boost morale, not just for the people that you've given the equity to, but all the people aspiring up the line. But when you get rid of them, make it final and definitive. And to the extent that you've given stock, make some token effort to buy it back from them so they don't own that stock.
Where's it better to incorporate as far as corporations offshore, Delaware?
Well, that's not my specialty, but the Delaware is a state that a lot of people use, and it's because of the voting. What?
It's real easy to incorporate in the state of
Yeah, but it's you may want to incorporate offshore. You may want to incorporate the British Virgin Islands. But I never worried about that because I don't mind paying taxes. You make enough money, you don't mind paying taxes. I mean, you know, and I've always made a lot of money, so I don't know what the tax rates are. I do know that when I came from Texas, I know state to California, you know, I have to pay more taxes. But I mean, it's not that big a deal. It's a lot of money, but I mean, it's not that big a deal. It's worth the price, so I don't have mosquitoes that are big enough to pick up babies, you know, sucking my blood when I'm playing golf in the summer.